Bad marketing on my part.
Ah, you just ruined the opening, dude. This is episode 16, and then you just hijacked it before I could introduce you as new co-host to the Slammers Baseball Recruiting Podcast, delivering value and expertise to the player, parent, and coach. Welcome back, Andrew Clements. Go ahead and take the floor since you wanted to steal it anyway, buddy. And now he's frozen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm
Uh,
up in the remote
yes,
Yes,
we
parts of
sir.
can.
Vancouver Island, and I don't have a great signal, FYI, but I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure to see both of you again.
It's okay.
Hey,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get right into it. NCAA federal judge in Denver, by the way, found that out, granted every college senior in every college sport, besides the football players, I believe, who went for the NFL draft, they can't redo it. But um, every college senior basically gets an extra year of eligibility. Coach, why don't you lead us off and let us know how, from a program standpoint, how does this affect how recruiting goes for the high school senior, and how is it going to change college programs?
yeah, it's kind of the unknown right now, but it's just like the COVID year all over again. It's just everyone's granted an extra year of eligibility. The 22 class. So if you graduated from high school in 22, she granted eligibility for all of those students. The only difficult piece of it is there's still another ruling supposed to come out today because all those programs didn't plan on any of these players coming back. So if you think about 314 Division One programs in baseball, let's just say baseball, since this is a baseball podcast, right? Maybe there's an average of 5 players on each team at the Division One level. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's 10. But let's just, for math purposes, there's 1,500 students that just went into the portal 2 days ago that weren't in the portal before, and only 49% of the portal players found a place to play. So we've doubled the portal again. So the portal is back to 100%. And we're trying to figure out where these athletes are going to go. And I don't believe that the universities have money for them. Then they didn't go in the portal in June. Sorry for the long answer, but they had to go into the portal in June, but none of them knew that they were going to be eligible in June. And so now it's August and they're eligible, and now they got to go into the portal now. And I think it's just, I don't know if you guys remember, but the last time we were here, we were talking about the 5-year plan. I said, well, just wait until the lawsuit comes for the players that finished and still have another year of eligibility. And there it is. It's already started. So I think it's just going to wreak havoc right now for the high school student athlete, because
Well,
now you
isn't
just took 24-year-old players and you pushed them back into college. And would you much rather have a 24-year-old than an 18-year-old?
well, yeah, of course. Well, all of that, let's just assume that 4 out of 5 of those college seniors that you spoke of had scholarship money that was getting replaced or is given to an incoming freshman. How are they going to sort that out?
Yeah, they've already given their money away. So a lot of these student athletes have to find a different school, or the university has to come up with the money. At least during the COVID year, there was that year where everyone got their money no matter what. So you could go over the scholarship limit. But now the scholarship limit is at 34. So a lot of universities are not fully funded at 34 scholarships for 34 players. And so I'm not quite sure how they're going to be able to. They got a lot of issues. They got a lot of issues that need to get sorted out. But the biggest issue is this: school starts in 2 weeks. So the fall season starts in 2 weeks, and you have to certify in the fall. to be eligible. You can't go in there at mid-year and then be able to play baseball. Now, basketball and football, I think there's, probably different situations, but you figure they flooded the system too as well.
I'll read from the article. A federal court dealt perhaps a chaos-inducing blow to the NCAA's new eligibility rule when it ruled that all high school class of 2022 athletes exhausted their fourth season of college eligibility this spring are eligible for a fifth. Colorado ruling came hours after a Tennessee court granted Jalen Washington, who most recently played at Vanderbilt, and 18 other basketball players a fifth season of eligibility. In June, the NCAA approved its new eligibility model for Division I athletes, so that will allow 5 seasons of competition over a 5-year period that begins with their full-time enrollment or the academic year following their 19th birthday, whichever comes first.
And Tag, to add to that, the NCAA, they were tired of litigation. So they said, hey, let's give everybody 5 years and we'll do away with all the litigation of injuries and players not and needing a second season and transferring and what happens when you have to sit out. And now all of a sudden, here they are again. It's very difficult task right now. And to tell you the truth, I've called Division I coaches over the last 2 or 3 days to try to get answers. They don't have the answers. I mean, we're talking about Division I coaches that don't have the answers to the ruling. They're like, we're not for sure how this works for us, who we can get into school and who could be eligible.
It would be real easy for a young athlete that is going to be a freshman feel like they're not being noticed or they're blending in. Andrew, what's your advice for a teenager who becomes obsessed with the thought about how adults view them, and speak to how that can be toxic to performance and how one can overcome it? Hmm. Coach, Andrew mentioned identity crisis. I'm sure it's not hard for you to tell when your younger players are going through one. What are the signs of an identity crisis in a young player? And share an example of an exceptional player who navigated it successfully.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's probably 6 categories that players fall into their freshman year, and that's why the attrition rate is at 50%. So 50% of the incoming freshman class at a Division I university is probably not going to make it. And they're not going to make it for a number of reasons. Number one reason they're probably not going to make it is lack of discipline. So, first time away from home, no one's telling them when to go to bed. No one's telling them to do their homework. No one's telling them that they have to, do these different things. The coach is saying it, but no one's actually watching them. So it's their first time living on their own. So they can go out 6, 7 nights a week. They can stay out. They can stay up as late as possible, play video games, do whatever they want to do each evening in the dorm with their friends, right? And so no sleep, not enough discipline, going to be very difficult for you. Second reason, relationships, right? Relationships with a significant other. Either they're going to go through a breakup with their significant other that left for college, or they're going to have different relationships at the university and they're going to go from one to the other, or it's going to be a whirlwind of time. Drugs and alcohol. First time you get to make your own choices on whether you drink, don't drink, whether you smoke or don't smoke. A lot of things coming at you as a young player. So your identity crisis, you have to figure out, am I an athlete or am I a student, right? Or am I a student athlete? If I'm a student athlete, then there's my identity. But if I lose my identity and I want to be just a student, I have a really hard time balancing that act, right? Because there's not enough sleep, there's not enough quality decisions. Now, add into that, you're playing against 23 and 24-year-old players. So if you hit in the 3-hole in your high school team and all of a sudden you're in a fall game and you're hitting 10 or 11 or you're hitting 9, you usually play shortstop. Now you're moving over and playing second base. You play first base. Now they moved you out to left field. There's a coach there teaching you all these things that you need to know about the game. And so now for the first time in your life, you're not the best player on your team. You're just a guy that's part of all the best players. There's another identity crisis for you, right? Like, who am I and how am I going to do this? The ones that do it the best are the ones that show up every day and they're very coachable. They're coachable in the weight room. They're coachable with their sleep habits. They're coachable with their study habits. They're very coachable, and those are the ones that survive. The ones that don't survive, they say, "Hey, look, I got it figured out. I can do all these things." Before you know it, the jet plane just flies past them, and they look up and they're halfway through the fall, and they're like, "Oh my God, I am so far behind in school. I'm so far behind in sleep. I'm so far behind in baseball. I'm so far behind with my coaching staff. The weight room is killing me. This time commitment that I've made to Division I athletics is unbelievable. Like, I can't believe I don't have any time. I don't have any time. I get up in the morning, I have to lift weights. I go to practice. I got to go to study hall. Finish study hall. I got to look at my video. When do I find time to eat? When do I find time to sleep? And now mix in, if you go down the social road, you have no hours left in your day. You're exhausted. So you get to the end of the week and it feels like you've lived 7 months. The ones that have succeeded, Tag, I'm looking at 2 of them right in front of me, you and Andrew, right? You came in, there was a little bit different idea of how you were going to handle your life. You were very coachable. You understood how to build relationships. Did you get off track? I'm sure you guys did. I didn't see it, but I'm sure you got off track at times, but you were able to get yourself back on the road. Um, I've seen players with the greatest discipline lose it. I've seen players with poor discipline gain it. But you have to have an idea. Andrew said it best about your identity. I mean, do you want to be a student athlete? And if you do, you have to separate yourself. Because I'm telling you right now, 50% of the kids that come on campus their first year, that's the separator for them. 50% of them gone. They got eaten up somehow, some way. And it could have been the competition. It could have been the sleep. It could have been something else outside of that. And it's something now when you're looking at it and there's 24-year-old players ahead of you. For you guys, there was a 20-year-old player ahead of you, maybe a 21-year-old player ahead of you. And if there was a guy that was 22, you were like, wow, that guy's really old, right? Like 22, that you're ancient. Now there's 24-year-olds playing in front of you, and they've been through all the pitfalls.
That's crazy. You were right. I remember the thought of a 22-year-old when I was 18. Um, Andrew, I think I'm going to call out the sleep component of that. I really, as soon as he said it, I'm like, that's a big one. And I remember going to bed was probably my first big challenge because you're in an entirely different social environment, especially to get along with your roommate. And I didn't have a TV in my room growing up, so then I had a TV in my room, right? So me managing my sleep, it didn't take me very long. I figured it out, but I can see that being a huge detractor from optimal performance. Andrew, speak to what are the minimum sleep requirements for a performance athlete, and talk a little bit about how sleep deprivation affects the best performance body.
Andrew, did you say 145? Did you say 145 ERA?
GPA.
Oh, yeah, GPA.
Pardon
Wow,
my
Tag.
lack of. Yeah, I know. What is
That's
sleep habits
fantastic.
of a high performance athlete? You just wait. Elite athletes generally need more than a standard adult, which is 7 to 9 hours. Most sports scientists target 8 to 10 hours per night, and many pro athletes aim for 9 plus during heavy training blocks. Teenagers need more, not less. 9 to 10 hours is the realistic target for a high school athlete, since adolescents are still growing and their sleep pressure and hormone cycles differ from adults. Same bedtime and wake time every day, including weekends. Erratic set schedules, i.e., social jet lag, degrade performance even when total hours look fine on paper. Regularity is arguably the highest leverage habit and the one that most young athletes get wrong. I'll skip naps. I'm going to go straight to the why it matters concretely. Stanford's sleep extension work with their basketball players found that increasing time in bed to 10 hours improved sprint times, free throw accuracy, and 3 point accuracy by roughly 9%. On the injury side, research on adolescent athletes found that those sleeping under 8 hours a night were around 1.7 times more likely to get injured. Sleep under 7 hours also measurably raises susceptibility to upper respiratory infections. The athlete who plays sick, who is always sick, is often the athlete who's always up late. Ooh, I think it just got uncomfortable for some people that might come across this. Wow.
Wow, that's amazing, and it goes into injuries and performance and everything that they need. That's wonderful, Tag.
Yeah. And I remember my father was a college football coach, and I still was absolutely floored at how much time playing a college sport takes. And the reality is that to be practiced in the afternoons, that means you have to take classes in the morning. So I don't remember my freshman year ever sleeping past 7, which means that if you need 9 hours and you're up at 7, that means you have to be to bed at 10 p.m. That is a social sacrifice in college. So yeah, that is a social sacrifice in college, but you can't understate sleep enough.
And so
Wow.
now measure that to a 21, 22, 23-year old who can digest this information and understand those are the jumps that they could make at their age versus taking a kid at 18 and trying to get him to understand that. And yes, if you're a 1%er, if you're in the 1%, you understand it. But if you're not in the 1% at 18 years old and you need a little time to groom yourself, it's like going on the highway with a tricycle. It's just, you're going to have a hard time keeping up. You can't catch up.
I didn't plan it this way.
Interesting too. When I was going through the 6 reasons why they fail, I could see you two guys shaking your head because you were going down memory lane, like, "Oh, that guy's off the bus. Oh, that guy's off the bus. Oh, that's where that guy checked out. Oh, that guy checked." And I kept, as I got to 6, you had 6 guys in mind that checked out, and you were
More than
like, "Oh
that.
yeah, yeah." You were like, "Oh, I get it. That's why the attrition rate is 50%. I saw all those guys. I saw all the mistakes they made." Oh,
Yes.
the
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think that
yeah.
yeah.
And I think too, uh, to go one step further, right? The kids that struggle, the ones that have an opportunity to succeed, you have to tell them, look, believe in who you are, continue to believe who you are from a confidence standpoint. No matter how bad you get beaten down by the competition or the adjustments or the coaching staff, figure out, believe in yourself, right? And keep coming back every day. Keep coming back every day to be coachable. Don't give up. Don't be like, I'm just tired of listening to this guy, and shut him off and then say, oh, I don't have what it takes to make it at this level. The ones that scrape by, and only 18% of freshmen were playing back in your era. That's way less now with the portal, and way less now with COVID, and way less now with this new 5th-year rule. 18% of the freshmen were playing. So 82% of the freshmen weren't even playing. So I think it's got to be it's got to be under 10% of freshmen that play.
I think it
Like,
was
Tag,
9. I think we talked about it. I think we talked about it on a previous episode, and we looked
yeah,
it up that it was 9%. Only 9% of freshmen are playing right now, or this past year.
just think, that's just amazing. Yeah,
I think,
I think it equates to, like, when you're 13 years old and you move to the diamond where it's 90 feet and 60 feet 6 inches, and you got to throw the ball 127 feet to second base when you were only throwing it 90 feet and you're not physically strong enough yet. It's that feeling of like, oh no, this field is gigantic. Like, how do I'm running to first base. It seems like I'm never going to get there.
yeah, I think the takeaway from this section is that the way that you nurture your talent is through your habits.
No
And
doubt.
I think unless your habits, if you can look yourself in the mirror and say that your diet, your rest, and your training habits are a 10, I think only then can you really look outside of yourself and say, am I really getting everything out of this situation that I can? And you can't, if the youth is blind to that sometimes. But if you want to stick out to a college coach, and now you're competing against an up to 24-year-olds, if you would like to get someone to buy in on the prospect of your contribution in the future, demonstrate exceptional habits, learn how to function inside of social sacrifice that it's going to take to be a student athlete. Um, Andrew, I'm going to stick with you. The fall's coming up. Summer just ended. A lot of the most of the summer tournament schedule just ended. I already know that there are tryout camps and not tryout camps, but what do they call those? The uncommitted. Slammers is having the uncommitted showcase down at Thunder Ridge High School in Denver, right? Um, Man, I would be tired, right? I would be tired if I'm a junior, going to be a senior, and then I just finished my summer tour schedule. and I'm going right into it. How how does a how does a 16, 17-year-old kid approach the fall going into their senior year, right? They're uncommitted. They're going into their senior year. There's an extra class of people that's above them, right? What is the right mindset? What are the right habits, the right physical skills, the right physical cues? What is the right way to attack the fall if you're a high school player right now? Nino, um, help a player go through the inventory they should do at the end of the summer, right? Your competitive load goes down in the fall compared to the summer. So, how should that affect my training habits? Because I think it would be real easy for a young kid to think that, well, we don't compete as much, and so then I got to go to the cage more. So do they go to the cage more and do the same thing, right? And they just practice more? Do the reps change, right? Do the should the reps change in the fall versus how they were getting their quote unquote extra reps or their pre-competition reps in during the summer? Explain a little bit how the mindset should shift from the summer season into the fall one.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was having that conversation this morning. I had the opportunity to have breakfast with Luke Keeschel in Kansas City. Twins were playing the Royals, and he was saying, in the off season, I want to work on this, 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 and this. And I was like, well, you got 50 games left of the season. And he's like, yeah, but I have a list together of what I want to do in the off season in order to come back next year and be more successful or better prepared. And I want to break down some film and see where my hands are, if they're in the right position. I want to know what I'm doing with my lower half so that I could sync it up to my. And he was going through probably 6 different scenarios of what he wanted to work on in the off season, and he had already made a notebook and he was taking notes as to these are the things I want to work on when I get some time away from competition. And I think that's a learning experience for everybody that's on this podcast, right? It's like, yes, the season's going to end, you're going to do an evaluation of yourself, but during the season as you're evaluating yourself, you should be journaling and saying, okay, when I get time, I want to be able to do this because this is going to help me get to the next level or the next level for myself, right? And a lot of them, some of that could be, you know what, hey, I got to get stronger. And these are the areas I need to get stronger in. I need my lower half to be better. I need to be more explosive. These are the exercises. These are the people I need to seek out in order to do this. I don't necessarily think just going to the cage more is going to be beneficial. I think probably getting away from some of that and getting into the other pieces, the reading, the visualization, the food, resting your body at times is something that's very important. Getting away and doing something different from the sport itself could be really beneficial for you. Studying other athletes in other sports could be hugely beneficial. So I think as it starts to wind down for you, I know we all want to just stay busy, 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 but we need to throw some real accurate darts at making our game better.
Hmm. I always thought of, and I encourage young players now, high school players, to understand that, the fall and particularly the winter is when you experiment and you
Yes.
challenge yourself and you try some new techniques and whatnot. And it's really tough to do that when you're playing a lot. But when your training time versus your competitive time starts to outweigh one another, that's the time to do that. Andrew, in terms of an experiment schedule, let's say, right? If you're going to go into an experiment phase as a budding competitive athlete, whether it be a hitter or a pitcher, can you give some framework in terms of, like, I want to try this fill in the blank? I'm a pitcher. I want to gain velocity, so I'm going to do this, right? I feel like that's probably a mindset of like kids right now, like, oh, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to be a year older. And then by the end of this year, I'm going to be at this velocity, or my exit velocity off the bat is going to be this. And so I'm going to do that training regimen, or I'm going to use this tool, right? Talk about what the healthiest mindset and some good framework for a young player to go into the experimentation phase of an off season.
Ted, can I piggyback on that real quick and take this full circle? I think what Andrew's saying also it runs true for these student athletes that are going into a program, their first college program, right? You go into this college program and for a year they've been recruiting you, telling you how great you are and how great the university is. And then you're going to play here and you're going to be part of this, you're going to be part of that. And then all of a sudden you show up on campus and you're like, there's a lot of guys here. Like, I thought I was going to be the only guy here. I thought I was going to play first base and there was no other first baseman. I thought I was going to hit in the 3-hole and there's 10 guys trying to hit in the 3-hole. And I think you don't have the right to those actions. And it's the first time it hits them in the face. And it's like, okay, you need to get to the high side of the ball. You need to get inside the ball. You need to stop running at the ball offensively. You need to slow the game down. You need to control your breathing. And these things go boom, 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 boom. And that's the experimental phase that they need to go into. And sometimes they're not willing to go into that experimental phase right away. They're like, whoa, just let me show you what kind of player I am. And then I'll experiment. And it's like, no, that's the best time for college coaches to experiment with you is as soon as you get there, because now you're lifting weights and now they want you to get your nutrition in order. And so they're trying to teach you all these lessons. And the athletes that are okay experimenting, those are the ones that are successful. It's the ones that are rigid and say, you know what? No, I don't. I don't want to get to the inside of the ball. I don't want to get to the high side of the ball defensively. No, I don't, none of that. I just want to play. Just let me play. And that's where it collides, because they want the fruits of their labor to show instead of understanding the work has to be put in.
Wow, that's good. Coach, you've worked with a number of professional hitters, I'll say late, deep into their career. You worked with Chase Utley for 3 or 4 years. You come hit with you in the off seasons at school there. I can't believe I've never asked you this question, and I'm going to ask you. I played 11 years professionally, and I came and I hit with you every single off season, almost every day. What was the difference between when I started or when you coached me as a player? What differences did you notice by years 9, 10, and 11? What was the difference in how I approached my technical routine?
Yeah, I think you knew yourself. I think you knew yourself so much better at that point in time. You went through phases when you shaved your head and you got extremely big one off season, right? You grew your hair out long
I was
and
experimenting.
yeah, you were experimenting, right? But I could always tell by your physical appearance, like where you were in your development, right? Am I locking it down or am I freeing it up? And so that kind of gave me a clue, right? When the long hair guy showed up, I was like, oh, this is going to be nice and relaxed, and he's going to know exactly who he is. And when the shaved head guy came, it was going to be, we got to work. One time it was black. One time it was all different colors, but hey, but I knew by that approach, that's how the season went and what you wanted to do. But realistically, on an honest note, you just knew yourself so much better and you were so much simpler in your work. Like you could take 20 swings, didn't have to take 200. You could work on one facet of your game, just getting yourself to your ready position or your land and load. And you understood that early in your career. There were so many changes because there were all these voices in your head. Got to hit for more power. Got to go the other way. Got to do this with this. Got to do this with this. Got to go here. Got to do that. And I think as the year 9, 10 came around, the voices subsided and the only voice that was there was yours. You knew exactly what you were telling yourself. And so then a guy like me comes along and it's this calming conversation because you knew exactly what you wanted to do and I could just add to it. I kind of stayed out of your way early because this is a cliche, but a bull in a china closet, that's kind of how you were early in that career.
Uh, you answered that. I did not think of that coming into us recording this. I thought of it as we were talking, so I was in no way I was wondering what you were going to say, and you answered it perfectly because the reason why I was asking it was because I knew that. Of course, I lived it. Not surprised to hear you say it, but that's kind of what my hope is for a kid that's listening or for a parent of a kid is that the external validation is a lie. It took me
Yo,
until my
so much.
it took me until my late 20s. And the thing was, coach, let me ask you, was I doing anything that different technically or physically at the end versus the beginning?
Um, in some ways you were offensively because you knew yourself, but there were always the injuries too. So that's another facet of what you were going through, right? So the one time you had to rehab the knee, right? One time the shoulder was bothering you. So that there was always those things that made you change. But no, you weren't doing much different. You were coping with stress and failure way better than you did early. And so I think the maturity it showed, right? The maturity showed completely.
Yeah, it's funny. I love the outside observation, but in my mind as I replay it now, all I was trying to do was be slow and early at topping inside.
Yeah,
Slow, early,
same.
topping inside. Right, right. And like that's my encouragement for a listener or a parent of a listener is to gain clarity. And it slow, early, topping inside is something that is very objectively seen and very objectively felt, right? And it doesn't matter what somebody's opinion was, and that's what I struggled with early is that you get into what's written about you or what you could hear people saying about you or somebody that's not around you every day that is a seemingly powerful influence that they tell you what they think you should do. But it wasn't until I gained clarity on this is what makes me successful. And it's my success and it's my definition. And I tell kids all the time that, much more important than the accuracy of how you describe what you do is the clarity and conviction that you have in it.
Mhm.
In fact, some of the best players that I played with, how they describe what they do would make hardly any sense. Like, hey, how did you hit that pitch? And then they describe what they're trying to do, and it's like it doesn't make any sense. But the best players have the most clarity and the most conviction in what they do. And I think that in this time that we're in from a college and high school going to college perspective and wanting to get that external validation from a coach or a program or a scout or your teammate or whatever, seeking that really, really causes a lot of mental friction. And this was a tough game to play with mental friction. Um, so I would encourage clarity and conviction, grounding in who you are, a steadiness in your mind and in your breath as you train, as you perform. That's my best advice for a high school aspiring to be college baseball player. I'll leave it there as my parting shot for the episode, and I'll lay it over to you, kick it over to you guys to wrap it up.
I think it's really interesting because I think the slow and early part is very accurate. I think the inside part is very accurate. I think on top, uh, that's how you saw it. So there's your
Right.
conviction.
Yes.
You don't hit
tough.
200 home runs in the minor leagues, over 200 home runs in the minor leagues by going to the top of it. You were on the inside bottom of it, lifting it out of the yard most of the time, but you had to be convicted to being on top of it to get yourself that way. And I've two guys, two of the best power hitters I've seen in my day, A-Rod and you. A-Rod talks about being on top of it. And then when you watch him swing, he's not on top of it. But that's how he saw it. And that's how you saw it. And that's the conviction that players need in order to be successful. Because you were an elite power hitter that was not hitting ground balls, so you were never on top of it.
It's true. It's fair. It's fair.
Oh, yeah.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. Find your own. And I think the one thing that we learned earlier in the episode is that what works for everybody is sleep. Go to bed, kids. Get your sleep.
Now. Now.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right, Ted.
See you in
Yep.
the next time. All right.
Hey, Andrew.